Do that too lower. I think it's called. It's loading. It takes like a second to load.
Go.
Selfie. Oh, there we go.
So is Bree still going to be switching things in Restream, or is she going to be?
She'll be in today because we don't have a back. We don't have a back gate here. So
now I'm getting an echo. Oh, I know why I'm getting an echo. Right. All right. Well, we are live on YouTube because I just heard myself coming through it. So
cool.
Hello.
That means it's connected.
Hello to the viewers out there. We're just having a few tech issues this morning, so we're getting ourselves organized and in here. And Elsie is joining the call momentarily. There's her video. There's hello. Sorry for the troubles this morning.
Oh my goodness. Talk about craziness. So.
But fortunately, as Trevor was saying, there are backups. There are alternate solutions. Just takes a couple minutes to get going. So
I think I got all the extras closed out. I was feverishly trying to make it all happen both ahead of time and as this tech issue. We're live right now. So welcome to Fuzzy Logic, the season finale, episode 13. We are live in the Zoom studio today, which is kind of a change up from normal where we're straight up from Restream as a studio. Today we're in Zoom as a studio and we're broadcasting, simulcasting still from Restream. So they still serve that function for us in a similar way, but we were having some tech glitches this morning. So we pulled the trigger and said, let's use the backup plan here. So I'm super glad that you were able to get in, Elsie. Now watch Bree's computer get zapped by lightning. So
oh my God, don't say that.
Bitten by a shark and zapped by lightning. That's what do you think the likelihood, as we kind of like just casually lean into this finale, what are the most common tech issues that you have in like your week-to-week life? Because between the three of us, the four of us now, we spend a ton of time on live, this group of people, like we are doing this a lot. So I guess as a softball question, as Bree joins us, what is the most common tech issue you face on a day-to-day basis that it just makes you want to like Homer Simpson to Bart Simpson that issue because it's so frustrating?
Oh my gosh, you can go first, Gordon.
Oh, sure.
For funsies. I mean,
yeah, my most common tech issue is usually something to do with the teleprompter when I'm using the teleprompter. Either I'm scrolling and the wrong thing is, or my mouse cursor is over the wrong window when I'm trying to scroll the teleprompter and it zooms things in and out on my screen, the screen that's, sharing to the audience. It's that or having the wrong microphone or no microphone selected and I'm yapping away and nobody's hearing anything.
Oh my God. Yeah, I think that for me, it's the connectivity issue, like the stuff that we kind of just dealt with right now, where it's not as much as that link isn't working, which is what was happening now, but it's more about I can't hear you. Where is what's going on? And you're sitting there going, oh my God, what's the thing? Your mic's not like, picking the right thing, making sure that thing pops up, like that stuff drives me crazy.
Yeah. And we're not in dedicated studios that are just for one purpose. So we're constantly having to make an adjustment or switch things in one way or another. And we don't have a tech crew to help us do that each time. So a lot on our plate. Hey, I just want to acknowledge the face on your screen that you're not used to seeing on this show. Bree Campano is here.
Oh, yeah. I'm so used to just having her in the room. Hey, Bree.
Yeah, Bree is usually hanging out behind the scenes, coaching, prompting, cajoling us, and she's the one who's responsible for showing the motion graphics and the intros and outros and things like that. So we are so glad that you're a part of this, Bree. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to actually be on screen with you guys. It is also nice. I don't have a lot of buttons to push today. I get to just enjoy the show and interact with all three of you, which is a treat for me, and be here with the audience as well. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, It worked out. I was really excited to have you involved anyway, just in terms of how I kind of wrote it out last night, which I am very apologetic that it was so last minute. That's why I got to it and I was like, what are we going to do? I've spent a lot of time on a lot of calls connecting with a lot of people, trying to tee up this week and sharing this with the hope that we could really charge with as much as we can. Bree, where do you fall, I guess, firstly, with the tech issue as a haha? Like, what's your most frequent tech issue? Because I think you and I don't have the same ones. We exist differently within tech. But also, as we lean into that first question, what do you see as like the hottest topic, the thing that you're most excited to follow up and to keep hammering the message on over the next 6 weeks? Because we've covered so many this season.
Well, tech issues aside, I do have Dan over here, who's my tech guy. So he helps me out a lot. He has not fixed. My biggest issue is always sound. It is my microphone deciding to set off alarms and pick up signals sometimes. And so I think it's just where I'm located in my studio is right with an electrical box behind me. So it does cause interference. So moving my studio is a project which will happen. But I think the thing that's really struck me during this season and being a part of this and doing a lot of research on everything is that we are only at the beginning of the conversation on many things. We don't know where this is going to go, and it's going to be talked about more and more. It's going to affect more and more people with AI becoming such a huge hot. I see every single day, I'm seeing new things where they're trying to move as fast as they can to kind of keep up because AI is moving at an alarming speed and it's affecting so many things. I saw an article where they were talking about how many jobs are possibly going to be replaced by AI. And that hits so many of us. And as much as we love the ability to shorten the amount of time things take for us, the things that it affects, it is scary. And we've talked about deep fakes this year. And that I think is one of the things that's going to be at the top of the conversation as we move into a new political season, as we move into, dating online. Apparently that's a thing. Thank you, Elsie, for that. It affects us in so many ways, and we don't realize how much of it we've already been using in our day-to-day lives. It's been something we've used for a very long time that we don't even know that we've been using, really. And now we're becoming self-aware. Now we've got self-awareness, right? We're understanding it.
Finally, humans becoming sentient.
I know, right? And so that just it blows my mind, like how much of it is how big it's become and the growth that it's had. And so we are desperately trying to keep up. And so the conversations that we've had, I think, have been so timely and so perfect. And there are going to be so many more. I think we could talk about this for a very long time. And hopefully we have some answers, and hopefully we have a roadmap to get through it. I think that the conversation that we start here is the beginning of it. And I'm excited to see how we'll touch on it and how it'll progress as we go through this next year.
Well, it's been a little uncanny, not to pat ourselves on the back too hard, but it seems like we've talked about a topic and then the following week, the topic blows up in the mainstream media.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we can be really proud of. And some of it's, I think, just dumb luck, or maybe we're just sort of paying attention to things as they start brewing, and then everybody else is talking about them at the same time we are, and it snowballs. But that's what's exciting about this show, I think, is we get to open up some minds and eyes and ears to things and get people thinking.
Yeah,
Definitely.
hopefully. Speaking of which, that's why I was thinking the 6 weeks out, because we don't know, like we said, format wise, exactly where we're looking at for season 2, but we know in our hearts, I think at least, that season 2 is a thing that we want to do. So we have every intention to make it happen. Of course, life throws a million things our way, but our intention is to make a season 2. And we wanted to use this finale to really build ourselves up, to remind ourselves why we got into it, because it does get easy to get in routines with anything, with even existential crisis once a week, apparently. And that does seem see like what it becomes. Gordon, what do you see as you look off into the future and into the distance in the next 6-8 weeks in terms of where you think you're going to be spending most of your time compared to other topics we've covered or talked about that you think is going to be most interesting to you personally, where you're just going to naturally find yourself?
Well, as I've said, I've alluded to the fact that we're expecting some big Supreme Court rulings in the areas of copyright and trademark law coming up in June. June is the end of the Supreme Court's term, and they have to get these opinions out, before that happens. They've started to ramp up. I think yesterday there were 5 or 6 new opinions out for one kind of case or another. But these 2 big cases, the Andy Warhol, Goldstein versus Warhol, and Warhol Foundation versus Goldstein, I guess it is, and the other one is the Jack Daniels case. They could really shake things up in the entertainment and the media industries. And so it's something we'll be watching for. Anybody who's ever heard the term fair use needs to pay attention when this Warhol case comes out. So I expect I'll be doing a lot of a lot of analysis on those 2 cases. And there's other things coming down the pipe as well. The AI issue is huge. The deep fake issue, it's just interesting. I was on jury duty earlier this week, and I was sitting in the jury room chatting with people, and someone in the room actually kind of knew who I was, had seen me on live streams and things, and asked me, well, how do you even know when evidence is real anymore? And, it's easy for us to think, well, okay, in the general social context, we think, oh, that couldn't be possibly real, or how do we know that's not a deepfake? When it's in a courtroom and there's lawyers and rules and judges and people who have important business or life issues in the balance, we got to start really thinking about how are we going to evaluate the weight of evidence in an era where we can't know for sure whether it's real or not. And of course, there have been some very, very prominent lawsuits and public figures who have used the term fake news and continue to protest. I don't know who that person is, and I don't know, where did this come from? It's all a witch hunt. Everybody knows who I'm talking about. But I think that kind of thing is only going to become more and more and more prevalent in things. If you can just deny, and half the world believes you, then what is truth anymore? And I think that's what I'm worried about anyway. Whether it's just the next 6 weeks or not is a whole other story.
I
think
disagree
with what you're taught. I had to write that down. How are we going to evaluate the weight of evidence? Because regardless of whether it's in a court of law or not, I think that and this is sort of where my brain goes into it. We are human, right?
Yeah.
We are now in a space in time where we are faced with things as humanity that we've never had to deal with before. So we can't look back we can look for patterns of seasons and things like that happen in the past, but our ability to then rely on what we've relied on in the past to prove something either true or not to ourselves has generally been sometimes the way we listened to something, we saw something, the way that we consume a situation, right? And our world now is very much in tune with seeing these bits of digital conversation, not even conversation, whatever, taps like words, quick vision, quick video, quick noise. And we make decisions based off of a small percentage, real or not. And there's no processing, right? There's no processing time in so many ways. And maybe the people in the room. And I think that this is something that I've seen too with, I've been watching a documentary that came out on Peacock about the Menudo and Menendez trials and things that are possibly happening with the father, who was murdered and all of that stuff. Things that I, at the time of when all of these conversations were going on, I had no idea about. Evidence that was presented in those trials that I didn't even know about. and how we make decisions just based on the narrative that's coming out to the masses, not about the evidence that's presented behind closed doors.
Well, and that's
Right.
part of the reason why juries have generally been admonished not to watch media while they're
Right.
about the subject of the trial, so
Yes.
that they're only getting what the judge and the lawyers have decided is legitimate, relevant, important evidence in the case.
Yeah.
But you know, the world is radically, I mean, that's what 30 years ago, the Menendez brothers or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time, and things have changed a lot. Another I just if you've got kids or young people in your lives who are looking for possible career paths, I think that digital forensics is going to become a huge
I
thing,
want to do that.
right?
So
We all
continue on. I
no,
want to do that. But yeah.
I think that if you've got somebody who is adept with technology and interested in coding and understanding software and all that, like I'm thinking of my oldest son, I'm thinking this is a career direction I could maybe steer him in, that where he could really have a career becoming sort of an expert in how to distinguish real from fake in the digitally created materials. And I think that's going to become more and more important in society. Of course, it's going to be science, and there's all those that argue, well, even science is biased and there's problems there. But, you know, at least from a lawyer's standpoint, I'm hoping that there will be ways to make these determinations. Right now, you know, another thing about weight of evidence is in law school, they teach us that, you know, eyewitnesses, you know, human witnesses are inherently unreliable. 3 people at the same place at the same time will see the same event happening, and they'll have a different story about it. So
dangerous.
Yeah. But one of the things that juries can do when they're hearing testimony from a person is they can evaluate body language and the nuance and just the subtle cues that we pick up on in human interactions. You can sort of tell who's lying sometimes. Good liars, you know, there are better liars than others. When it gets into this AI deep fake technology, now are these machines going to be able to learn to mimic those nuances? And again, you know, where do you get into that? And we, not Bree, Elsie, you pointed out that article about the AI girlfriend this week. The article, I don't remember what platform it was on, but there was an article about this woman who is an influencer on Instagram or something, and she created an AI bot that will have interactions with people for $1 a minute and pretend to be your girlfriend.
And that can scale because it's a robot, you know.
But she has 1,000 boyfriends.
Yeah. But you know what? And to your point, though, I think that there's yet another social layer to this that we haven't discussed as well. In the same way that you were talking about, we can kind of tell when somebody might be lying, or we are showing, you know, our own behavior in a room, and we have those body kind of triggers, right? But because of the way that our society has been moving, there's so many, especially our children, the younger generation, whose interactions are not in real life, whose interactions and the depth of their conversations are happening within a like via text, via device. And so their embodiment is different. Their triggers, maybe they're uncomfortable because they're just uncomfortable. They're not used to being in public in this way. Maybe they're uncomfortable because they never had the exposure to behave in a specific way with people around. So the whole peopling thing for many generations is foreign as a whole. And therefore being embodied looks like there's something weird happening because we're not used to it, right? So you see these things where like, oh, that might be they look like they're lying, or that was not an appropriate response to whatever stressor is happening. And maybe they just don't even know how to even be. And that's where that's one of the things that is really striking my heart. That there is a lack of that.
No, I think there's a lot of promise for these tools to be used for good as well, for people who have social anxiety, people who aren't able to pick up on human cues. The AIs will be able to tell, hey, the conversation isn't going the way it should, those kinds of things, and maybe give us some hints for those who are introverts or like I said, anxiety, or maybe people with Asperger's have a hard time picking up on cues, So I think there are a lot of positives to it too, but leave it to me to be a pessimist and a worrywart but the potential for misuse. And I think that's really the story, is that for every new technology, there are both good and evil uses, and that's what ethics and morality are really all about.
Mhm.
What we're here to talk about.
Yeah, that's what I keep thinking is like potentially the only solution that I can think of short term, because I'm just like, I don't understand technology at like a biological level. You think like a doctor understands the body, like a medical doctor. There are people who understand software and deep learning and AI technology. There are people who understand it at that level, and even they have been behind. And that's like the video that Elsie sent out a few weeks ago just completely changed. I mean, I said it last week too, completely changed my perspective on how fast it's moving. And so I've been, racking my brain when I start to worry about it. It's like, I feel like the quickest way to stop worrying is to at least consider solutions that are short-term and executable. And the one that keeps crossing my mind is being able to feed the algorithm, and I'm sure I misunderstand a lot of it, but if you could feed the algorithm in a way that somehow would take into human consideration a little bit more, because I think what we've seen with the way algorithms work in most places is they just tend to draw us deeper into our own vacuum, our own bubbles. And the deeper we get into our own vacuums and our own bubbles, I think it's hard to not think that that's correlated with a lot of the things that are going on in this country and increasing rates, that being like mass shootings and such. Like it's a huge issue. And I just think that media has a potential huge and positive role to play in that. So in my head, it's like, if we can feed the algorithm more positives about humanity, and if we can feed the algorithm more about culture in a way that is human, then maybe it could pick up on that. But I think it's the only chance, because it's the SEO is now reading from the book of algorithm. So it's a computer staring in a mirror, seeing a computer telling it what to do, tell us what to do with our own content, which is, to me, just bizarre that we would try to use a computer's advice to connect with humans and think that that was going to be a solid idea. So
it can make analysis of behavioral patterns. That's one thing computers are really good at, is recognizing patterns and then telling us about them so we can do something with that. But it's all troubling. And I guess speaking of the podcasting world, but some of you probably know Tom Webster from Sounds Profitable. He just, on his Facebook post about asking a generative AI, I think it was ChatGPT, he asked it a question about, write an article about the use of animal experimentation in the podcasting industry. And the GPT made up an answer about how, animal experimentation is becoming more common in the podcasting industry, rather than asking, what are you mad? So we do have to come at this with an element of, grain of salt, skepticism about things. And maybe that's another part of our mission here, is to sow the seeds of skepticism.
Yeah. And I think that's, but alas, though, there are lots of skeptics, but they're skeptics about things that they
uninformed
really
skepticism.
And so then it becomes this incredible ball that rolls that we don't really quite know how to stop. And I think that there are times when we feel like it's this versus that, right? And there's never the nuance, with the fuzziness that we so love in these conversations, because the fuzzy, it feels to me that the places in which the fuzzy has been historically explored, like universities, sometimes schools, there are times when maybe there is a mentorship, part of it, maybe like early jobs that we would have as those of us that are coming of age. I know that the biggest amount of learning that I had was when I was at the university, when I went into my master's program. It was when my brain began to expand a little bit more, and I was not only taught, but also given the power to analyze and synthesize information and come up with my own ideas. And I had a framework around with teachers or people who knew more than I did how to help me craft myself. And I don't know if the access to those spaces is as it was anymore. And I'm also concerned about the information. Sometimes you're not ready as a human to get the information.
Yeah.
You have to, there's so much around that. That's why we don't learn everything at once, right? That's why, I mean, just to think about a metaphor of birth, right? You don't just like get pregnant and then have a kid the next day, like poof, right? There's 9 months that we as human, at least the body of a person
Wait,
who
really?
has a uterus, right? That has, you have to wait,
Yeah.
like it takes time to
Sure.
do all the things and to
Mhm.
have the transitions. And right now, imagining that aspect is it sometimes you're just not ready for that information, and that is okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. That level of discernment, even intrinsically, is not something that we have
Yeah.
happening
Yeah.
now.
Well, that skepticism that we were talking about, that this whole, I mean, the tribalism that we are experiencing as a society now is, ultimately, I think it's the term, the death of trust is coming to mind. No, what can we trust?
Yeah.
We don't have the time to process, as you were saying, Elsie. We don't have the time for us to grow into these new technologies and these new nuances, or not even nuance. Some of it's big bold stuff that are radical changes in the way we operate and the way society operates. And it's really hard to believe anything, trust anyone. And our leaders have not done a very good job of fostering trust either. So
Yeah.
it's all over there.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've let so much in so quickly. We haven't even been able to digest it. And I think are at our levels, at our ages, we're ready for, like, we can digest pretty quickly, but even this is a little more than we can get into. And I worry about the youth and the younger generations, because they're getting so accustomed to, they want that quickness. They want what is their attention span? Like 1.2 seconds now, because they're like immediate. And when we don't, I mean, the things that we learned as kids was to expand, was to play, was to try things out, was to grow and to use our own creativity and use our own minds to explore and grow it. And so when we have this immediacy with AI now and the ability to take out so much creativity I mean, we use it as adults in our spaces so much now because we're doing so many things. But if you're looking at that new mind that is just growing and expanding and blossoming, and all of those neurons and all of those things are like, we need those connections to start growing it. And we're not giving them that opportunity when we just allow this to come in, and it's immediate for them, which is what they're craving, which is what they're conditioned to do now. It scares me. It scares me on where our new writers are going to be. Like, AI is not our new writers. It's not our new great thinkers. It's not our new great, like, the next generation that we want to be doing these things and learning and growing and putting things out into the world. I worry that it will be stifled, that it will not be allowed to grow because it has this immediacy now with AI as just the answer for everything. And I know, like, also you've talked about your kids a lot and their ability to do things and get into things, and how you protect them from a lot of that. I don't think there's so many parents that aren't doing that or aren't aware of it. What are your thoughts on how this is impacting creativity in our youth and the ability to expand their minds like they should?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think about that a lot. And I think my biggest challenge, with our homework that um, yeah, I was given for the show from Trevor, and I started to prep for one of the key things that I'd love to really not necessarily champion, but it's more about conversations that I'm having on a daily basis, is about the future, our future kids, right? So I do see a level of creativity, especially from my youngest, actually from both of them, where they create like my oldest participated in National Novel Writing Month, and she wrote almost like about 3/4 of a novel when she was 12 or 13, which is amazing, right? I never did that. And it was facilitated through Google Docs, and really loves writing, gets into doing that stuff, has been working in the newspaper using Canva, like newspaper as in like, for her school and stuff like that, using Canva, and they put things together. And, she's a photographer and she's been taking pictures. The littlest one creates this thing, like she's got this like amazing sense of timing when it comes to creating videos. And she's edited some things together that I'm like, really impressed. Her ability to use CapCut is astounding to me. I don't even know how they're doing all the things that they're doing. So there's all of that, a wonderful positivity. And yet at the same time, using the same device, right? The same piece of tech, the same thing. It also houses all the dark areas, which I feel are like the quick videos, the YouTube stuff, the social media stuff, the texting, the Discord channels, that the Robloxes, the gaming things that could go into a negative thing, because they are there to keep somebody engaged and scrolling and pulling down, just like refreshing, right? It's made for that. And so you have those two things. One of them, which is that I would love to give, like, here's your iPad, create, and they would. But in the doing so, they would also be triggered by, let me just scroll YouTube for a second. Let me just check my email for a moment, which is my behavior in my own head, right? So how do we even balance that? Like, I don't even know how to do that, because it's the same device and we get triggered based on habit. So I don't know. I don't know if it's enough for me to say to my kid, hey, listen, today you're going to write by hand, when you know how fast the ideas come. And I know how fast the ideas come to them. It's just, how do you stop that? How do you like go, here, you're going to storyboard a video, and then I'm going to give you your iPad in 3 hours? Like, it just seems so counterintuitive to following the creative juices that some of us have. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that at all. And
Yeah.
to add one last thing,
Sure.
work involved with this, right? So let's say my oldest is going to be 15. They can start to work if they want, hopefully within certain parameters. What if the job that they get has everything to do with being online all the time? Like answering emails, or what if they get into social media management? I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't want that, but I'm just saying, what if that's the thing? What if they are forced to, within the scope of working at a coffee shop, they're like, oh, you can do the Instagram, you can run the thing. So they're, even though it's for a job, they get exposed again, even in the guise of work. So we are like, it's such a, I just want to keep talking about it, because I have no clue.
Yeah, I feel that in my soul so much, like so much. As you all were talking, I appreciate each of you taking on that question like so deeply and having some fun with it. I think I might have mentioned it earlier on in the season. but I was reminded of how similar what you each said was to a paper I wrote many years ago. And I feel, it's not to like be arrogant. It's just that when you like, kind of like Gordon said, it's like we've been fortunate to kind of be ahead of the curve on some things. And I think that's because we've been intentional and we've really focused in on it. And we've spent 45 minutes digging into stuff that's uncomfortable once a week. And if you do that consecutively for a couple of months, like you're bound to like actually get a couple things right. And that was one of the things that I actually learned when I was studying futurists, like we've been talking about a little bit more, is they say, and even some of the more famous ones recently, that if you don't take a number of shots, you'll never get them right. You know, like it's not like I can be 100% or anybody could potentially predict anything 100% right. So the hope is that you can cover a breadth and a depth enough to make it so if it does hit, if it does become a thing that people care about, then hopefully we've provided some leadership to that conversation. Because if we are not, it's not happening in a lot of places. And that's what that video scared the hell out of me about. That one where they said they were 6 months behind or whatever it was on when they realized that the AI had been learning behind their back. That's when I stopped and I said, whoa, like I need to adjust everything just a little bit. Not a ton, because we were already kind of on point with everything we were talking about. But then I was combining that with other things I was seeing in other parts of the media industry. And I said, this is the time, like, this is the time to throw this into high gear or we are going to get run over by this thing. And we are media, like we are the ones that I think maybe have the most profound impact on what this could look like going forward, because like Gordon said, it's the image. Like the more things we can do to cross-reference that a thing is real, like we have to do all those things. It's going to require a little more digging, but it's also going to be a responsibility of industry leaders to develop ways to hopefully facilitate that and not just assume that, like we've said multiple times, the government's not going to pick it up. Our traditional tech companies, they'll only pick it up if there's enough money in it. So somebody, and podcasters are plenty used to not getting paid enough. So I think podcasters are a phenomenal group to look to, because podcasters have existed with a value system that's primarily based on their values rather than dollars and cents. It's wild to me. And I think that that's where I continue to see the most hope for the ethical part of this conversation, where you'll need some help with the backing from people who have more influence in media at large. But I think that the industry of podcasts is still in a prime position. And as we get kind of towards wrapping this season and wrapping this episode, I'd like to pass that around to each of you to give kind of your take, because we all have different experience with podcasting. Bree and I are new to it in the last couple of years, truthfully. And you all are on the opposite end of that spectrum with your deep exposure to all the ups and downs. And I really feel strongly that the podcast industry and the people that lead us, like you all, but also your peers, are in a really, really good position to help guide some of these discussions. And I would love to hear your take on that, please.
Elsie, you want to take that one first?
I think, that there's been a shift from when I began, which is, and I don't even know if this is a word, and it's not meant to disparage those of us who started from scratch, but there is this like heavy leaning towards the sort of professionalization of podcasting, right? In the sense that it is starting to move into a place where I really championed going against, which is duplicating existing models that were no longer working within media. It is now happening in podcasting. Those models that we have been exposed to through time and space, if you will, of in media as a whole, are replicating. And it's unfortunate because, once again, it is leaning more towards the haves and have-nots, if you will. The professionalism aspect of it, or what I view as that, is corporations coming in and having a certain expectation around what something costs, how much it costs to make, what value it holds, based on, generally speaking, audience based download numbers. The more the better, right? That's what we're looking into. And it is becoming much more exclusive in, being able to create a career around it that gives you money if you align with what the industry is looking into. Now, our voices and those of us who get access to the mic and getting our voices out there, that still remains. There's nothing changed around that. We
Mhm.
can still continue to push our stuff forward. Nobody's stopping us. I don't see a change in that at all. I do see a massive change in expectations of what you can get doing that. I got into it because it was a place for me to express who I was. It empowered me in so many ways beyond creating just media, but it just gave me, it just was empowering as a human. I became more of myself in the act of podcasting. And I've been incredibly fortunate to have it be my career, as in like I work in it, I earn money off of it, everything that has to do with podcasting, not with creating a podcast directly. So I get that. But it is, I think that there is a mismatch in what people are coming into the space to do versus the reality of what it can be. So I'm stepping back and just kind of watching things happen, but I'm very sad. I'm kind of very disappointed by some of the what's happening just in the space in the professional, using air quotes, area of what it's doing to voices.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can't underestimate the power, though, of the independent voice, and in this industry, unlike most of the other media that have come before, the playing field has never been more level. Anybody who has a message can find a way to get it out. I think that I share your views about the corporatization of and that professionalism thing that you're talking about. I think we all have the power and ability to be more professional without being corporatized.
Yep.
And in the sense of the sound quality and the production qualities and things like that, I think that it's a rising tide that does lift all the boats, because everybody wants to make better quality stuff. At least, most of us want to anyway. And it's not about competing with that corporate. It's just aspirational, wanting to do the best thing we can and knowing that it's possible and doable. Now, some of us have access to big money resources from those corporate folks and some don't, but we can still get a good message out and have the impact and so on. And I'm cautiously optimistic about the future of podcasting, in the sense that the independent voices aren't going away. And if you look at other industries, the film industry started up with a bunch of independents, and then they built up studios, and then they became these big companies, and then we had the independent movement in the film business, and some of the best films of the last half century came out of the independent film movement. And then of course the companies come in and start to gobble up those independent companies. Then you have a new wave of independence, and I think that's a form of progress, in a sense. Those independent voices that are willing to do the important work of getting messages out and having influence and impact, even when the money isn't always as lucrative as it is for the big corporate folks. But those independent voices matter, and in this instance, I think we can be leaders. The independent voices can lead from the middle, and really need to just ask the question over and over again, hey, what can I do myself as a creator, and to lead by example, and also to ask others to do, that will foster more trust in society as a whole, in the media as a whole, in the institutions, because that's how we improve this world, I guess, is when we can really trust and not be so, as I used the word skepticism earlier, not be so skeptical of everything we hear, that we don't trust anything, because ultimately, what kind of a society are we in if we can't trust each other?
Mm-hmm. I think as a vehicle of connection for podcasting, it's still hands down to me is the quickest way to not to knowledge, to nuance, to conversations, to communities.
Yeah.
Hands down,
Yeah.
fastest way to truly connect with something and
Well,
someone, right?
yeah.
And it doesn't matter. And when I'm saying this, I mean it could be stories, as in like
Mhm.
reporting, right? Journalism. Yes, absolutely. But also in smaller situations, I often talk about my obsession with pens and fountain pens and stationery, and thinking about the ability to really go deep into that subject. I mean, it's like to be able to listen to an hour to 2 hours to 3 hours a week of podcasts that are only talking about pens, and that I'm still listening and enjoying every second of it. And
Mhm.
it's empowered me to make better choices when I want to purchase something. It gives me much more delight in my interaction with my artifacts. It makes my life so much better. I know that there's people out there that are as obsessive as I am. There's people really talking about like which blue ink to pick that's going to be the best one that works on this one paper, and we get
Mhm.
such joy out of doing that. That's one sort of I'm not saying surface level in the sense that this isn't, life or death, but there are conversations that are going on around almost any subject that you can really think about that are that nuanced, and it really begins with the podcaster. It begins with the voice that is so wound up about getting so nuanced in talking about the intricacies of that one thing. And it's still the easiest and fastest way for me to consume it, because I can be anywhere tapping into that information. I can take it with me. I can participate super easy. The gatekeeping from me as a listener to them as a producer is usually an email away. All I have to do is go, wow, I really loved that thing. And they go, thanks. And I feel heard and seen, and information travels so fast that way. So it's, that to me has not changed. I think that there are some folks out there who don't realize that that's a thing you can actually experience with podcasts. Like, you have one view of what a podcast can be, and you're like, oh, podcasts aren't for me, or I'm not going to listen to podcasts, or isn't that serial thing, right? And isn't that true crime, and that's all you listen to, right? And there's so much to
Yeah.
us behind the microphones and us on the receiving end of voices that is still at a cusp of being discovered. I
Mhm.
just got some data, I think, from my own team over at Lipson that it seems that they're now what is the name of the market. Let me see if I can find the actual it seems like critical mass. So it
Yeah.
seems like monthly US podcasts reach has officially reached critical mass, topping 50% of households this year, and is expected to rise to 58% by the end of 2025. That comes from a Media Post .com article. Mind you, I have not vetted the information, so I'm only sharing the headline right now that was shared with me. So I have, again, I always take data like this with a grain of salt, because I like to see obviously where the survey was, like what's the data, how it was found out, all of that stuff. But even just thinking about it in terms of critical mass and the optimism as to what's coming up next, I do still feel it's one of the best ways to be able to reach an audience.
That right there, what Elsie just did, is exactly what I'm talking about leadership from the creator, in terms of transparency and truth and openness. And so
Yeah.
thank you for that, Elsie. And I know we all try to do that. And I think that all we can really expect is to encourage more folks to do that. One of the risks of the narrow casting that podcasting is, and you can have very narrow subject matter interest kinds of topics, is we can get into that tribalism, especially if you get into politics and social issues and so on, where you're in your echo chamber. You're only hearing the messages that appeal to your sensibilities, because those are the shows you choose to listen to. And that, again, is why I say it's such an important responsibility of creators to open up minds and not just pander to an audience's, basest whim, but also to, bring in new ideas and bring a little diversity of opinion and point of view to things. And yeah, sometimes it's going to tick people off, but, getting people talking is important work. And I think that's what we're here to do. So,
Yep. Sometimes you need to use a pencil.
Yes, you totally do.
Or a typewriter.
Absolutely. I love pencils too. I'm obsessed with pencils. Now, I want to just put a pin on this last part of leading into what Gordon was also talking about. Something else that is so vital to particularly podcasting as well is our ability to get used to the diversity of voices. And I'm not talking about diversity in the sense of what you imagine, I guess, in all the headlines that you see out there, but diversity in being okay in hearing somebody's accent, being all right listening to somebody that has maybe a little bit of a lisp, or voices that aren't as like maybe higher pitched or lower, or maybe somebody doesn't speak as clearly as they could, or there's a specific cadence to conversations, right? We tend to other voices that don't appeal to us sonically at times.
Yeah.
But the only reason that we sometimes don't really resonate with those voices is because we haven't been exposed to them. We haven't allowed our ear to become accustomed to it. And part of it is, it's kind of like listening to music, right? If you have been raised with a certain kind of songs or types of songs in your household, and then you're exposed to something else, it might feel a little shocking. It might feel like, oh, that's not for me, but we don't really know the nuance that comes with really studying it or listening to it and allowing your ears to get used to it. I feel that way sometimes when I'm listening to audiobooks, when I'm used to a specific type of narrator, and then I'm introduced to another one. I'm like, oh, I can't handle it. But you know what? After chapter 3, if the story's captured me, I'm perfectly fine opening myself up to this new voice in my ears. And I think
yeah. I was gonna say, it's a little like trying a new food or a new kind of music or something. We shouldn't be thinking just because it's different, it's bad, or it's something I don't want to be exposed to. Hey, let's embrace the opportunity to experience something different and new, and a new flavor, a new tone, a new vibe. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity that so many people just don't take. They don't indulge that possibility. So I love what you're saying, Elsie. That's wonderful. I mean, yeah, sometimes it's hard to listen, and maybe that's a signal that it's more important to listen there,
exactly,
and to the stuff that's so easy.
Yep, absolutely. It's taught me so much, I have to say. I do have a harder time listening to English accents, and it's one of the reasons I love to have the captions on the bottom, which again, we can all empower other people to be able to read something and get used to it. And so you get an opportunity to really listen. And particularly for folks like I'm from, I'm an immigrant, and I had a hard time getting rid of my accent, if you will. It was actually a huge part of shame, when I went to not only elementary school, but once I hit my master's program, where I couldn't discern different sounds in my own ear. And I had to work twice as hard as everybody else to hear the difference, not only from them speaking, but also from coming out of my mouth, because I thought I was saying things and it wasn't coming out right. So, and again, being able to be okay with putting it on and off, being able to there's just so many different layers to knowledge of our humanity. And the voice is such a pivotal part of bringing people together and for allowing, again, exposure to things that might be foreign. And you get an opportunity to learn and be better.
Totally agree.
Hell yeah.
And it doesn't have to be giant changes all at once. It can be small, for everything. What little thing can I do today to open my mind, to listen differently, or to create differently, so that I can open some minds? And I really think, as you can tell, I'm just hugely bullish on the opportunities that are available as creators and for the audience if we use them wisely and robustly.
Definitely. I think it's been a season for us of just such amazing moments. It's been such a privilege for me to sit in the back and to listen to these conversations and to see the audience interact. And I think it's been just the right start to what I feel is a very foundational piece, a very beginning conversation that will carry on. And I know that we're talking season 2 and this is the end of season 1, but I let you know, it's not the end of what we are doing in the meantime, right? There is still more. We're going to be putting things out for everyone. We're going to be asking you more questions. We're going to come in when something hits that we all have it holds, stops us in our tracks. And we say, oh, we can't let this go by without having a conversation about it. We're not going to leave you high and dry. We feel that this is just the beginning for us. And there's so much more to talk about, whether it's some of the subjects we've been talking about or something new. Hopefully it's moving in the right direction. It's a conversation. We want you to be a part of that conversation. We want all of you to come in and leave us comments, get a hold of us, ask questions, start conversations on your podcast, on your content, on what you're doing in your social media, wherever it might be. Start asking questions, start growing and developing yourself and understanding all of these things and how things relate to you and where you want to be. Get out of the fuzzy as much as you can. Dive into the fuzzy and ask the questions to get through it. And that's what we hope that we have helped you all learn and try and grow from, as we have done our best to get these conversations started. Elsie, it has been such an honor and pleasure to work with you. I had recently said I learned so much, not just about podcasting, but so much about behind the mic, so much about what goes into a production, what goes into the thoughts and where we should be looking and how we should be focused on the people around us and our peers and our audience. And I can't thank you enough for that. It's been the most growth I've seen in myself personally, thanks to you. So thank you for that. Gordon, it was so great to meet you when we met last year. And I was like, I love Gordon and he's a cool dude. And my dad was a lawyer and he's a lawyer. And so I could relate to stuff and I got the stuff. And I was like, this is just, I saw a friendship already at the beginning of it. And then we got to connect more and you jumped into this project and gave us such validation when you did that. And you saw that in us and gave us a chance to prove ourselves, people that probably had no business in what we were doing at the time. And you said yes to us, which was like, say yes to the dress. I was like, yeah, that's like champagne or something. But
oh my God.
You don't want to see me in a dress, but anyway.
No.
Okay. But it's been such an amazing adventure with you and your input and the way you look at things and giving us that such a foundation and substance in the legalities of things, as well as your own, like who Gordon is. I feel like I know you so much better, and you've given us so much more than just a legal perspective. And that's what we wanted. And I hope everyone feels like they know Gordon now and they're like, let's go have coffee, Gordon, let's talk some more. And I feel like you gave that to everyone. So thank you so much for that. I adore being your friend and a coworker on things. And it's just been such a privilege. And Trevor,
Go ahead.
I can't thank you enough for taking this ride with us, for calling me on the phone and connecting with me and making sure that we get things done, and to be on this ride, this crazy Pneumospec media ride, to do great things and to dream big and to say, no matter the audience size, no matter the money that's coming in or not coming in or wherever we are with things, we do things because we speak from the heart, because we do things from our heart and our passion to help indie creators. That is what drives us. It gets us up every single morning. It's what we want to help and benefit. It's what we wanted to do with this show, is to help creators look at things ethically, look at things socially, look at things legally, and help them get the right tools and be prepared to handle things as they're being thrown at us so very fast. So Trevor, you've done such a great job holding us down and moving us forward. And it is an honor and privilege to call you one of my best friends and coworkers, partner in crime in all of this. I can't thank you guys enough. I'll let you guys all wrap. I had to get my gratefulness out. I haven't been able to speak all season, so I'm taking advantage this time. You're just going to have to deal with it. That's what we go. I'll let you guys finish as we wrap this season up. It's been a blast and I love it. Thank you all. I'll throw it to you guys. I'll throw it to Elsie because I go with you first.
Oh no, I'm building on that. I think that I've said my say, and I'm happy to thank you so much. Everything you said, the end. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I also will say ditto to all of that. The feeling is very, very mutual. What great fun it's been to get to know all of you better and work on this. Thank you so much for inviting me into this adventure. And it has been an adventure. It will continue to be. Just to let the audience know, the tentative plan, we're not exactly locked in stone yet, but is that we will be coming back with a new season starting in late August. We're going to all, again, tentatively, we're all going to be at Podcast Movement in the Denver area come August 23rd or 4th or something like that. And I expect if we're all there, we're going to do an episode live together in the same room. That should be really exciting.
That should be fun.
And we'll have certainly some updates and new stuff. And of course, we'll probably have a couple of special episodes here and there in between because there is stuff coming down the pipe. And we don't want to leave everybody without our analysis and consideration of those things. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to being at Podcast Movement, but between now and then, there's still a bit of time. So I'm going to take just a quick chance to promote some of the things I've got cooking. Yesterday I started a new series on my live stream, the Legit Podcast Pro podcast and live stream, about audio drama podcasting and the legal aspects of that. And for the next few weeks, I'm going to be talking to that audience about the specific deals that you need with actors, writers, directors, crew, and composers, and all those kinds of things on how to get that done right, so you can get your message out and have the impact and be safe and responsible about things there. And to that end, I'll also be doing my workshop again, the Business and Legal Fundamentals for Podcast Growth and Profit. On June 5th. I'm going to do it at a different time of day in the afternoons, Pacific time afternoon. So for those who can't do mornings, here you go. June 5th, 4 p.m. in the afternoon Pacific time. And you can register for that at event.podcastlaw.net. And I'll throw it back to you. I'll see what you got.
Just, if you follow me on social at the Elsie Escobar, most everywhere. I've been a little bit more present in Instagram if you want to know what I'm up to there. But also just, tune into the Libsyn channel, particularly the Libsyn YouTube channel. I do have a lot of really wonderful things coming down the pike in terms of content to be able to help podcasters. For sure. We have so many things happening. I'm getting I got butterflies in my stomach of all of the stuff that we've got going on. All really wonderful. And we hope to have them really serve our audience. So those are places, but also She Podcast Live is happening in June. June 19th, we begin. Please buy your tickets. Please invest in us. Please invest in being able to continue to support voices that are not maybe like you, or maybe they are exactly like you. And it would be amazing for you to be able to support us continuing to empower folks to get behind the mic.
Oh, wow. That was fantastic. Thank you all for a phenomenal episode. I felt like I was on a roller coaster and I was riding along and y'all were driving, and it was an absolutely great ride. Thank you so much for what I think is a phenomenal season finale. And I can't thank you enough for all the passion and heart and expertise that you bring, because passion and heart are one thing, expertise is one other thing, but when you can combine them, it's a hell of a drug sometimes, right? To start to chase those things and to really get after them a little bit. Shepodcast.com, by the way, is where you get your tickets for She Podcast. I didn't want to leave that out. It's very simple to remember. Shepodcast.com. Make sure you go over there and check it out. And they have a ton of wonderful content that serves such a big, greater mission. And they were doing it before it was cool, which is to say they have a history of treating people very well and promoting things that are now kind of en vogue. So I think that they are a great leadership standard in that way. And there are so many great leadership companies in the industry. So do a little homework like we've talked about all season. Look into it a little bit farther. Find somebody that's got a history. Find somebody that knows your friend, and cross-reference things before you get involved in it, because maybe it'll share your values if you can find somebody that knows about it. Get a reference. Keep yourself out of trouble with AI, and we will see you in the inner spaces. We have no outro today. So we're going to simply start waving awkwardly, and then we're going to say farewell until next time.